The good news there is pretty much none of what you just described from last night. There are a lot of people out in the street, out on one main street here in Ferguson, where these protests have been happening for the last 10 days. But there have been very few tensions between the police forces who are there and who are, again, heavily armed, very well equipped, and the protesters who are there like every other night. But it seems that things, for now, are pretty peaceful. Of course, this can change very quickly, and it is more or less in and around this time in the evening when things over the last few days have just switched all of a sudden from peaceful protests to very violent confrontations between the police and protesters. That is something that could still happen. But so far we've seen very few arrests. There were dozens last night, a lot of violence as well. But there is, it must be said, another reason why tensions could still flare up tonight. That is because there has been another black man shot in St. Louis, just a few kilometers from here, by a police officer again. A shooting that has nothing to do with the shooting of Michael Brown 10 days ago, but still in a way goes to show how easy it is for a police officer to shoot an armed man, in this case, armed with a knife, but still it turned out to be pretty easy to kill somebody on the open street here in the Ferguson area. That could add some tension. It hasn't so far led to more violent confrontations, but could still do so.
And we have been mentioning that Attorney General Eric Holder will be in Ferguson later on Wednesday. Who's he actually going to be talking to, and what kind of message might he have for protesters and police?
Well, it'll be a message trying to calm everything down, because he could be the man who could change things ever so slightly. After all, he is the man who, for the moment, symbolizes the federal government. He will be sent here this Wednesday by President Barack Obama. It was his decision. For now, what we know is that he will be meeting with FBI investigators. There are a lot of them here in Ferguson, talking to eyewitnesses, trying to piece together exactly what happened 10 days ago. He will be speaking to prosecutors as well, and if he does what any other officials have been doing here over the last few days, those who've been visiting, the likes of the Attorney General of Missouri, for example, he will be going into the street where the protests have been happening and might go to meet some of the protesters. That might make a difference, because these protesters do not trust the local police force. Remember that the man who killed Michael Brown, well, he was a member of the Ferguson Police Department. There is no trust in that police department. There is no trust in the Highway Patrol either, who've been taking care of this investigation with very varied results, it must be said, over the last few days. The National Guard, as you mentioned earlier, they are here too, but they're staying a little bit away from the action. They are here to protect the command center of the police, but it is a sign of the times. There are military uniforms on the streets of Ferguson. These are the real military uniforms. This is the actual National Guard, and remember, of course, there's heavily armed police here as well.